Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Rachel Siegel, the Director of Strategic Programs at Illuminate. Welcome to our Crown Jewel Conversation Series. Thank you for joining us today from all over the world. Our hearts are heavy today as the war in Israel continues. It is also personal to us at Illuminate, as 25% of the women that we support in our network are Jewish women executives in Israel, and currently on the front lines of supporting their constituents, as well as being women living and working there. Today, we've invited Orit Sulitzeanu, the executive director of the Association of Rape Crisis Centers in Israel. She is one of the Jewish women social entrepreneurs in our collective cohort leadership advancement program. We've asked Orit to discuss the effects of gender-based violence and the impact of war on women in Israel. Each year, we select 10 extraordinary Jewish women leaders who are tackling the world's most intractable problems to take part in our program, The Collective. This cohort-based leadership advancement program fosters connections, encourages partnerships, provides resources, as well as a curriculum that is tailored to meet their needs. This enables these leaders to maximize their impact in the world. Our global network of changemakers is now 50 women strong. Illuminate is also dedicated to educating women philanthropists, as we are today, about emergent social issues and making impactful investments to support Jewish women leaders who are working towards social change. Philanthropists of all financial capacities are welcome to participate, no matter where they are physically located. Our conversation today will allow you to get to know one of the incredible women leaders in our movement. Orit Sulitzeanu is the executive director of the Association of Rape Crisis Centers in Israel. ARCCI, for short, is the leading NGO in Israel working for the education of sexual violence and serves as an umbrella organization for the 9 regional rape crisis centers in Israel. Under her leadership, the ARCCI has received the Emil Grunswig Award for Human Rights and the Minister's Award for Social Equality. Orit has received numerous awards and has appeared extensively at the Israeli parliament as a media interviewee and commentator, and has published many op-eds and public statements on sexual harassment-related issues. Please write any questions that you have in the chat for Orit, and we will do our best to incorporate them if time allows. To begin the conversation, I'm pleased to introduce our immediate past president at Illuminate, Rachel Weinstein.
Thank you, Rachel, so much, and welcome, Orit. I wish we were having this conversation under different circumstances. Thank you so much for making the time to be with us today. We've all been thinking about you. We're obviously eager to hear what's going on the ground in Israel. But I think, it would be great to give everyone a bit of context before we do that, to just talk about what the Association of Rape Crisis Centers, who are you, what do you do, how do you do that work?
Okay, for me it's good evening, for you good afternoon, and I hope last conversation I had with Rachel, I had to run quickly to shelter nearby. I hope it will not happen today and there won't be any siren. Okay, we're the Association of Rape Crisis Centers in Israel. We were established 33 years ago, but the whole story in Israel happened, by the way, with the model of the United States, that in 1978, a young student was raped. She went to the police, she filed a complaint, and the attitude she got was horrible. Because of what has happened, she decided that she cannot continue. She committed suicide. She left a letter, and in that letter she wrote, I suffered not only a first rape, but also second one. Back then in 1978, few feminist women said, we have to do something. There's no help, there's no government services, there's nothing. Let's help and let's open a hotline. That's how the first rape crisis in Israel was established. And gradually during the years, we've got now 9 rape crisis centers that are together, and they are our mothers and my children. They are my mother and my children. My mothers, because they gave birth to the association, deciding that there is a need for an advocacy organization to fight and to make change in the macro level. The centers do the work, help the women and the men, and do a lot of important things. But we have to change reality, not only in the micro level, but the macro level. And I can give you a lot of examples, but even now, just, so I could refer to the war. We're just now, as an advocacy organization, are checking the Israeli law, because in the Israeli law, there is no law that deals with war, rape, crimes. And we're checking now if we should initiate a law that deals with punishment if there's rape during war, or this could be in another law. And so what we do every day when we wake up, we put our glasses and we look through them. How is the world, on one hand, safer and better for survivors? How we can change the world, how we can change Israel, how we can educate. And so on one hand, we help the survivors, and on the other hand, we combat this reality. During our existence, we initiated over 50 laws. Every law has a story. Behind every law, there's a human being that something has happened, usually to her. I can give you like one example. It's just a short example. A few years ago, in the last decade, there was a cousin who abused another cousin. And when this cousin wanted to file a complaint, it was a he, but it doesn't matter. What did he discover? That the law says that the statute of limitations concerning cousins is a lot shorter than the statute of limitations concerning other relatives. That's why, if you're asking why, just like this, no answer. Just because somebody decided many years ago that this is the answer. So we changed the law, and today a cousin is like a father, is like a grandfather. And it just I see our work. It's a feminist. It's in a feminist way. We're like we have a big quilt, and every day we sew another patch in this quilt to change the country. So after all the rape crisis center were established, they decided in 1991 they need an organization that would look up in the country, go to the Knesset, go to the government offices, and advocate for change in the society. And this is what we do. So I have, as you say in Hebrew, 2 hats. One hat is an advocacy organization, and the other hat, I'm the mother, but also the daughter of all of the rape crisis centers. And this is, by the way, my power, because each time I go to a meeting with some important official, I say, here I'm sitting in front of you, I represent 10 organizations, and I represent 10,000 of victims. So I'm not just an advocacy organization. I have the advocacy and the grassroots. And this is very strong to make the world change and the country change. So this is who we are.
It's amazing. And it's a beautiful image that you used about this quilt. And it's very sobering when you step back and you say that every law is a story, and someone's story, and some survivor's story. And that's very, very sobering. As I said, I don't think there's anyone on this call who has not been thinking about our Israeli friends and colleagues since October 7th. And, before we dive into this gender-based violence that we want to talk about, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what is your daily reality right now? I mean, both personally and professionally, you're holding a lot at once. And I think that we would benefit from an appreciation of what that is.
Oh, thank you very much for this question. First of all, I want to say, I'm lucky. I live in Tel Aviv. I'm a second generation. My mother was in the Holocaust, and my father which just died this year in the age of 103. And I'm so happy he's not alive to see what's going on right now. He was one of the builders of this country, but he did not suffer from the Holocaust. But I'm telling you this also because I don't have a lot of family, because Holocaust survivors don't have big families. But we will not in my. But still, I'm lucky that my family is not in the Negev and not in the north, not in the far north. And my children, my daughter is in the army, but she is here in Tel Aviv, and it's okay. But I want to tell you how it is right now, because it's I think it's very hard to understand. Every day it's like when I wake up in the morning, I open my eyes. Just, the second that you open your eyes and what day today, what do I have to do today? And after 1 or 2 seconds, I remember where I am. It's a nightmare. It's really a nightmare. I remember, like every day we remember this massacre. It's a pogrom, October 7th. This was something unbearable. And every day after I open my eyes and I remember, it's like, oh, it's a big sadness in my heart. And then what do I do after that? I think many Israelis do that. I take my cellular phone, immediately open one of the big news sites to see if any soldier was killed. Every day. This is so scary because all of us, and me myself, I have nephews, I have families that are in the army. My sister's son is in Gaza. She's scared to death. What can we do? We have to protect the country. It's not them, it's us. It's not like in the States that we have a professional military. The military is us. I'm lucky, as I said, I live in Tel Aviv, and we have the sirens, but this is not like living in the south or in the north. But there's one more level, because Israel suffered a lot of terror, and we're used to this terror. But what we're not used to is what happened here. To meet this cruelty, to meet this sadism, the thought. Imagine yourself that like we had just really normal life, even if we had terror. It was normal terror, as much as you can say these 2 words. But to imagine somebody in the morning, you just wake up. I woke up that Saturday at 6:30 in the morning. I usually jog in the morning. I was about to go jogging, then I heard a siren. And my friends, my jogging group for the past 20 years come from all kinds of places. They come also from far away. So we said, okay, we're not going to run in the morning. And then a neighbor of mine suddenly said, I saw in the news some kind of car with Hamas terrorists in Israel. And we thought, oh, what is he talking about? But then news started to come in. And again, this sadism is something that humanity didn't see many, many years. What happened is really, really terrifying. And I don't want to go into a lot of detail because all of you read the news, but I will say really very shortly, we've got rape of women, rape of children, next to family members, mutilation of bodies, torture, degradation of bodies, a murder of a child by putting him in an oven, opening a mother's pregnant woman's belly and killing her in the womb. Horrible atrocity. I don't want to speak anymore, but this is horrible. And as again I say, if everything that has happened was just terror, regular terror, okay, we are fighting, it would be horrible, but the sadism that happened here, it's inhuman, really something. I think it's very dangerous also, because if it could happen to us in 2023, it could happen everywhere. I have to say that. And professionally, it affected the whole of our organization. We are an organization at war. We were thinking what to do just now, because sexual violence is part of this war. We're thinking and we're trying to influence the policymakers. How should they treat the kidnapped, the hostages that will come back hopefully very soon? I do not know if you in the States saw that photo that in Israel made a lot of noise, but the photograph of the two American women that were in Israel and they were released. When they were released, Gal Hirsch, who is the head of all of this, dealing with taking care of all of the hostages, held each one of them in each side, and this was the photograph. And us thinking about these women, we don't know what happened to them. We're thinking, how come he dared to touch them? How come he's not allowed to touch them like that? So all of these things have to be treated. We're also thinking about the survivors today in Israel. We do not know exactly how much, and I will talk about it later, but the survivors from the party, the survivor from this massacre in the kibbutzim, they will need mental treatment, very long mental treatment. And in Israel, it's not politics, but it's reality. For the past decade, I think, and I'm already a decade here in this organization, the mental system in Israel has deteriorated in a horrible way. And now we need this mental system. We need therapists. We need social workers. In Israel, it's not like the States. In this sense, maybe it's better because you can get this kind of therapy funded by the government. But there's such a big lack of therapists because they don't pay them enough money, so the system has to be repaired, and we are fighting and advocating for that. And also we are in a big preparation, and everybody is talking about it. What will happen once the hostages will come back? How will they be treated? Where will they go? What about all the interviews? Each and every aspect has to do with sexual trauma, because we here say there's a reverse proof of burden. We should think something happened. We should not ask, but we should think, and we have to be very, very careful, and not only careful, give all what they need in the most delicate and trauma-informed way. And this is what we do right now. And one maybe last more thing, I want to talk to you about the women and the men, by the way, that we serve. They feel now that their trauma is a small trauma because there's a huge trauma. They're very triggered. I want to tell you one word, penetration. The penetration was in that 7th of October, we heard it all the time in the radio in Hebrew: penetration, penetration, penetration. This kibbutz was penetrated. This kibbutz was penetrated. I don't know if you say it exactly in English in the same way as Hebrew, but okay, because in Hebrew, penetration means this penetration and that penetration. So all of our victims, survivors, they heard this word, and this is very, very triggering, and we have to take care of them also. There is no hierarchy of suffering, but there are many people suffering. So this is the situation right now.
Yeah, it's so interesting what you say about penetration, that is the same verb that we use to talk about the kibbutzim that we do as to what happens to a rape survivor or victim. I mean, that violation, that scale of violation. And I think, what you're describing is a collective trauma that the country's gone through, and the continued anxiety because you're still in it. And against all of that, you have to keep putting one foot in front of the other to get through every day. I know in your line of work, you are accustomed to hearing probably pretty horrible stories about gender-based violence, and that's a burden that you carry, and it's an occupational hazard. How is gender-based violence during war, and particularly what happened on October 7th, how is it different?
Okay, first of all, it is different, and we have to learn that as a country, and this is why, by the way, we're having we decided to do a series of webinars with top professors or professionals from Ukraine and from Serbia, who already dealt with this kind of things, because we did not have such a thing before. But again, the immense of brutality and sadism, I don't know if these kind of sadistic things happened around the world in the past decade. It's so extreme. And they, I have to say, Hamas, the terror group, and Hamas was so efficient. In a few hours, they destroyed a lot of things. And I tell you, even personally, in some sense, it destroyed, even for myself, the belief in human beings, because I met with a guy. I live very close to the hotels in Tel Aviv, and there are many evacuated people here. And one of the guys that I met, I just volunteered there for a while. He told me that maybe you heard about it in the news. That he told me that people who worked in the kibbutz for many years gave information to the Hamas terror group about the street where everything is. Okay, so but I want to go back to your question. So the sadism, the brutality is something that we never dealt before, and we do understand that there's special characteristics of sexual violence and rape during wartime, and I want just to share it with you because everything has to do with what we deal today. First of all, sexual crimes committed during the war times are carried out by armed terrorists against unarmed women and children. So many of the women who were raped were murdered afterwards. And their bodies today, and I say it maybe in agony, but their bodies today are the living testimony of what happened to them. Those who are survived, they experience this rape through imminent life-threatening danger. And this trauma is trauma over trauma over trauma. Another characteristic is a very extreme underreporting. There is always underreporting. Everybody that deals with this issue know, but sexual violence is in this war is because this collective trauma with very wide dimensions, and there is a big shame and a feel that maybe there's lack of legitimacy even to share the suffering, and also the extreme underreporting is because many people are not alive anymore. There are witnesses, but we will never know the extent of this trauma. And another characteristic is as you say, gang rapes. If you read the literature, the estimates are that about 90% of wartime rape cases involve gang rapes carried out in the presence and participation of other soldiers, terrorists. Partnership in these acts strengthen the bonds and solidarity among the terrorists. The woman there, there is at least one testimony. It was in the Israeli news, and I'm sure it was translated in other news, about a witness to a detailed testimony, or a witness to a gang rape, and afterwards the woman was shot. Another one is, as you can imagine, all of this rape was done in front of the audience. There are things that I heard, even personally, not through the media, about rape done in a kibbutz, that the rape, the husband had to see his wife rape, or in the party people. So all of these things, it doesn't happen in regular life. And the last characteristic is also very brutal. Again, it's better not to talk about it, but the bodies they found showed very brutal rape, and the body could portray the rape. This rape is hatred, and the woman is actually dehumanized, and the terrorist who saw the Jewish woman, he didn't see it as a human being, but a symbolic body, a symbol. The woman is a symbol of the nation, and to rape her, contaminate her, as they said, is to contaminate the nation. And this is something we have never experienced before. And this is such a wide scale, because first of all, there are the survivors, but in Israel, hundreds and maybe thousands of people are second responders. My friend's son, who is 20 years old, he's religious, and he doesn't know a lot about the things, and he saw the bodies, and he saw the naked girls, many of them from the Zaka units, all of them saw. And so there are hundreds of I think thousands of people who saw and will have to live with that, and of course the survivors. So this is what we have to deal with, and I wish we could go to our regular reality but we're far from that.
Yeah, it's beyond disturbing, and the fact also that these terrorists were filming this, for distribution and celebration is another just horrific thing to imagine. So, what are the psychological consequences of this? Of course, on the victims, the survivors, and on all of these other people, these second. I can't remember what you just said, but all of these
second
responders,
yeah.
and what kind of treatments? I imagine when you're moving into new territory, what kind of treatments are going to be needed?
As I told you, there's really, just today there was a big discussion in the Knesset about what the Ministry of Health needs to do, first of all, we need a lot of treatments. We need, in Israel, there's a big lack in the psychiatrics, there's not enough people who want to be doctors and want to study this field. And we need that now. Governmental sponsored therapy that is paid by the government, not enough. You can only have that through the Ministry of Welfare. I'm going into details because this is how it works in Israel. But the Ministry of Welfare, if you get that treatment through the ministry, it's like it's like you got aid from the Ministry of Welfare. It's not totally anonymous, and people don't want to have this kind of mark on themselves. So there's a big understanding and a lot of webinars going on now in the country of how to give therapy, what kind of trauma therapy. The knowledge, that not all of the knowledge exists here in Israel, and as we do also the professionals that try to bring knowledge from abroad. But it's not only to bring the knowledge, you have to pay for that, and somebody has to pay for that, and the government has to pay for that. And we live now in Israel with a government who is not there. The government is not functioning. I went last week to one of the hotels where the evacuated people live now in En-Gedi, and as the Ministry of Welfare told us, we have a social worker in every hotel. It is correct, but one social worker to deal with 700 people in the hotel with so much problems, and there's a lot in Israel. Everybody, there's a big ego in the country. This is mine. Don't like the Ministry of Welfare says, it's mine. Don't intervene. And there's a lot of balagan in Israel right now because the systems, we pay the price. As the citizens, we pay the price of a non-functioning government for many, many years, and the civil service in Israel, which is very good, we've got very good people, is not functioning. And you read it, and I'm sure you know about it, and this is one of the things. So the issue, also just today in the Knesset, one person said that already in some psychiatric hospitals, you've got people sleeping on the floor because people from the party, the survivors from the party, some of them needed to go to these hospitals, maybe some people will commit suicide. I don't want to say that, but there are also already suicides. It's quiet, people don't talk about it. So there's a big need, a tsunami of need for taking care of the people with governmentally funded. And because we have to deal with the needs, and we have to deal with a system that doesn't work. So as an organization and as an NGO, that for many, many years, it's usually when we talk also with the people who support us, we say we do some kind of project and we hope that the government will take it. Today, I don't hope for anything. I know that if I don't do my work well, and if I don't help all kinds of people who need our help, they will stay with no help. this is a very sad thing to say. I hope one day we'll change the system also, but now we're with the war, with the tragedies, and with non-functioning government.
Yeah, it's very sad. I mean, so you just addressed sort of some of what the short-term needs are, and what the short-term impact of October 7th is having on the country and on those who were directly impacted on that day. But what do you see as the long-term impacts?
It's a very complicated question because and it has the levels of the impact on what happened are very, very deep. It's not only on the field of sexual violence, what we deal with, but we're sure, and I'll tell you about it a little bit later, but we're sure it will influence our hotlines because there's no security in the country. No, friends of mine who live in the center of the country say, I'm locking the doors, I'm locking here. I want everybody wants guns. I even thought about it myself, maybe we should have guns, it's no security. This is, we always were very much counted on the Israeli army and the Israeli systems. We have a strong army, we have strong Mossad, we know everything, we're strong, we're smart, but this catastrophe gives a huge sense of insecurity that you cannot count on the system because the system, we're not there. We're not there, and people were just murdered, massacred for hours. And people who are traumatized anyway, this will lead to a lot of people that may not function as usual, people who suffer from trauma, PTSD, complex PTSD, I don't know how, not able to return back to the workforce, a lot of trauma. Not everybody, okay? Some people are strong and they have inner systems to deal with that. But this thing is very complicated, and I want to say also politically, it will change the whole political map in Israel. I don't know, I'm not an expert in that, but I don't know if the left and right will be the right terms, because all of us understood something very big happened, and the belief, personally, I want to say the belief in peace, coexistence, I still want, that's what should be, but it's a big question because we were betrayed in the most, we were terrorized in the most unbelievable way. So it will take years to, but I said the optimistic thing that I have to say, again, I'm telling you from my private experience and all of my generation, we were born to parents who came from Europe, broken, with no country, with nothing. They built this country from nothing. It's the same in the United States. Some of you also, that your parents came from Europe. People overcome. This is the life, this is life. We have to overcome, and we're Jews. Maybe we suffer, but we will overcome. We don't, there's no other thing. We have to have babies and new lives, and we have to overcome that.
We have to believe in that. I mean, we have to believe in that. We are a resilient people. It's unfortunate, that I think that we have a long road to go before we get there. I mean, we talked a little bit, and I'd love for you to share. I mean, what do you think that the impact of PTSD or this distribution of guns that's happening by the government, how will this impact, let's say, for example, domestic violence or other gender-based violence against anyone, but in particular?
We have, as you all know, again, this is not even political, it's a fact. Our Minister of Internal Defense was a former, he is not a person to count on. He's incapable of doing what he's doing, and he's I think guns, first of all, I think guns are needed in the country. We need to protect ourselves, but it has to be done very, very carefully. And we women will suffer a lot from that. We women will suffer a lot because because the systems are not working properly, and there's a big hysteria, and it's of course all of us could understand, but the fact that so many people will have guns, so one day and the guns will be there to stay, we will see more women killed, more women dying because of domestic violence, and it will be a lot easier now. And this is very dangerous. But it's partial. It's even not so legitimate to talk about it now in Israel. It's because you don't want that all of us, we talk among ourselves, all of my friends from the other organizations, because you don't want to sound that you're living in I don't know, in another world. Again, we're fighting for our lives, and never ever since I don't know, Yom Kippur War or before, was this feeling of danger, and it's real danger. So we need more weapons, but how, to whom, how is a person checked? This is a lot of danger, and we will pay the price as usual. But we will also fight, because there are a lot, all the women's organizations, we're talking together, we're petitioning that. Now it's very gentle again, but I hope this war will finish not so soon, and then we will continue our regular work, but it will take time.
Amen. Amen. For sure. So I was really interested when we were talking the other day that you said to me that there's this international denial of this gender-based violence, and particularly rape, that from October 7th, and that several international news outlets have been contacting you for proof, to give them the proof that this happened. So I'd love to ask you, first of all, why is there this obsession over this and this need for proof? And secondly, what has been your response to these news outlets?
Yes, we talked about it, and I'm thinking about it a lot. I get telephone calls from everybody. Today I was interviewed by some kind of French broadcasting service, and from Reuters, and talked to the New York Times and all of the important newspapers in the world. Everybody wants the picture, the video to see, and and it makes me a little bit angry, because it's like silencing again what we all women are already used to, silencing rape, silent sexual violence. Usually, even in the court, and one of my colleagues, one of the managers of the Rape Crisis Center is my colleague. She's a former judge. And I talked to her about it. I said, I asked her, what do you say? See, you've got the Hamas testimonies. You've got so many people who saw the corpse, and they saw what happened. You've got these first responders that came to rescue. They said, even you've got photographs of women without without clothes, and you see the bodies with blood. You saw two clips that everybody saw in Israel. I don't know if in the state, of one young woman. She was a she's alive, hopefully still, peace activist, and all her pants are with blood. There's a clip. She's taken to Gaza, taken out of the trunk of the car, and her name is known. Her pants are red. It's and you see that. How come somebody's pants are so red like that? It's not, and I don't. Again, you don't have to go to so many details, but it looks like a big stain of blood. And you saw the body of Shani Lok, the murdered youngster who has her mother was German. They paraded her body in Gaza. Her body is half naked. She's not alive anymore, but she's with no clothes. And what is that? This disbelief, it's very disturbing, because first of all, is that unwillingness to accept that this horrible thing happened? Horrible atrocities happen. I want to tell you here inside our talk, we're not allowed to write publicity about it, but I do want to say that we wrote and met with the Red Cross, because we're already in the beginning to push them. When we had the first information, we wrote a very delicate letter, because we're thinking about the parents. It was before now that it's all talked about. And we met them. They asked us not to publicize this meeting, so we did not publicize it, of course. And they told me, their expert who was in many wars, like all over the world with war crimes, told us that the way the Red Cross treats these atrocities, they reverse the burden of proof. As I said before, it happened. And why do everybody wants this evidence? I think there's something like, I don't know if there's a real term, but I call it pornography of war. And especially in the issue of sex crimes. Is this some willingness to see or what happened, like the details? This is I think some professors of sociology have to do a research about why we saw beheaded people, we saw the corpses, we saw tied corpses, I learned to use Telegram because of this war. I never went to Telegram before. Everything is there. If you want, it's very accessible. All of that happened. Why do you have the proof? And so I think it has to do with the sometimes silencing of sexual crimes, not believing the woman, always again, not believing the woman. Another thing is this pornography of war, and if I didn't see the clip exactly of him doing that, so it does not exist. And the evidence is quite a lot of evidence. And as I told you, my colleague, the former judge, told me if I was in court and I have all this evidence, the Hamas testimonies, the clothes, the bodies, and what the first responders said, that's enough evidence. But this is, again, it's a big question, and it's a sad question also. And that's what I tell the journalists. And I tell them, you will never know. And I also tell them, don't expect it to be like Me Too, that one woman will stand up and say, hey, everybody, I was gang raped by the Hamas. It will not happen. This woman, who, if she's still alive, and there is a few that are alive, I know, are now in horror until they will be able to return to society. It will take time. And I also know that we saw that in Israel, that only 10 years ago, we began to see these stories of the Holocaust survivors telling about sexual abuse in the Holocaust. Only 10 in the last decade. It never happened before. Why? Because it's so hard to talk about it.
Yeah. And as some people put in the chat, I mean, there's this systemic view of rape, especially of women, and you talking about this burden of proof and the humiliation that one would have to live through again to share their story, and how still we ask that of them, and also the anti-Semitism. I mean, why is it that the Red Cross is asking you to keep that meeting a secret? The Red Cross who's in Gaza taking care, like, that's problematic. That stories of Israelis would be silenced. That the brutality of what happened on October 7th would be silenced, when that would obviously resonate around the world. That is a problem in and of itself. Are you getting the funding that you need? I mean, I imagine that your services, if not in this moment, I don't know if you're yet taking care of survivors of October 7th, but certainly your services and the advocacy work that you're going to be doing is going to be in great demand. I mean, are you seeing an increase in funding to match that? What's going on there?
Okay, I will talk to you in 2 levels, because first of all, I'm representing myself, but when I talk about what we do, I talk about the rape crisis centers, because we're together, and my job is also to take care of them, and I also fundraise for them. I want to talk to you about the Israeli government. The Israeli government gives not us. We want to be always free of government funding, so we could criticize the government, and we don't want to be. This is our ideology from the day the association was established. But the rape crisis centers from the year of 2000 did start to get some government funding, and the funding is about 25% of their budget. And the number, I want to tell you what the number is. There are 9 rape crisis centers that are under our umbrella, and 3 other centers that were established later and are not part of the umbrella, but they still do the work. So if you've got altogether 12 rape crisis centers, and the amount of money they get from the Israeli government is $2 million to 12 organizations. That's nothing. And I want to tell you one more thing. We don't want to get a lot more, because the centers always say we don't want to be budgeted over 40%, because all kinds of issues in Israel. So because we want to keep ourselves also not dependent only on governmental budgeting for being free. But what is $2 million? It's nothing. And so we
are you
fight for
getting
our.
from the US and from other, where is the rest of your funding coming from?
Okay, so many, luckily, also is we get funding from a big. First of all, we do fundraising for the group and also for us. So we get funding, of course, from foundations and federations. Today, we have connection with. I don't know if you know this company, Soda Stream, for the soda. I don't know. So now they were bought by Pepsi. So we're now we submitted to Pepsi. And they've got this kind of emergency aid or catastrophe aid, something like that. And also big companies, L'Oreal, multi-global companies. When you have more women in jobs in these companies, they will direct funding for these issues. This is one of the things we do, but it's and we also do get, but now it will be less from Israel. There's a gradual change in Israel. Israeli companies understand the issue of sexual violence, but now again, women. I can understand that now, but not later. Now, first of all, it's the soldiers. Oh, yes, okay. Soldiers and all the people who suffered so much. And what can you say? People suffered a lot and are still don't have home. But we represent society. We represent women, needs of women. And women suffer quietly in their homes. They're killed in their homes. They're raped in their homes. And okay, and we have to take care of them. And especially because in Israel, I want to share with you one thing. It's an anecdote, but it has to do with the funding and the way the government treats us. 2 weeks ago, I was in the Knesset, a special committee on how the Ministry of Welfare deals with the war. The head of the Committee of Welfare is Rabbi Eichler. Rabbi Eichler is very ultra-religious with peot, very tall and very strong, okay? I was supposed to talk about the issue of sexual violence in the war and how to help the victims. It was 2 hours of a Knesset session. He didn't let me speak. We have a friend, MK. We asked him to tell him to let us speak. No, he gave everybody to speak. We were invited there. Okay, we finished. I went to him. I said, okay, I will at least say who I am. And I came to him. He rose up, said, time was up, turned his back, and he's very tall. And and went out. I was so angry at him. So I don't do that ever. So I shouted at him, be ashamed of yourself. Your children don't go to the army. Okay. I did that. It's not polite, but it was too much. And then I understood that he told this other MK, I didn't want them to speak because it's not the time of women right now. This tells the chairperson of the ministry, the chairperson of the Knesset Committee on Welfare says to me, in wartime, it's not time for women. He let everybody speak, them from people of disabilities, elderly people, everything is important. Okay, so this has to influences also funding and how government funds us and how government looks at us, especially now so many Orthodox MKs, Shas. So, but civil society in Israel is strong. Businesses support us, but again, I am worried because the needs will be dramatic. The country is in a turmoil, and it's always what you can see is first army, soldiers, houses. What about the soul? What about secure lives of women? Okay, this has to be taken care of, and yeah. We're trying to do the best
it's
now.
Scary where women's rights, was taking a back seat, 2 months ago, and to hear now that, being pushed even farther and farther back, and that the funding might not be there to continue to support women's organizations or issues that specifically impact women and children is really devastating. You know, someone in the chat asked, and it's actually Ruth from your cohort who I was wondering the same, with this shortage of therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists in Israel, is that something that the Jews in diaspora or the Western community can come and help with? I mean, to have people practicing and supporting victims and survivors?
I tell you the answer, it's not a shortage. Many people go to study psychology, social work. There are a lot of people and good people. The problem is, and it's a systemic problem. The government, I can tell you because my sister works in a psychiatric hospital. She's a clinical therapist, and so the salaries are so low. The government salary is so low because if you go to therapy, you pay for an hour like in $100 in Israel. Okay, that's about the price. Okay, so but the salaries, I give you the numbers. The salary, somebody that works in a hospital, for example, let me just calculate that for you. Maybe $3,500. This is the salary. This is very low. If you can get the $100, so people that they want to work in the public sector is interesting. They want, but Israel is very expensive. You know how many years it takes you to study and be a therapist. So the problem is that the country decides on the salaries because it's a governmental job in the Ministry of Welfare and the Ministry of Health, and they decided for years not to take care of the salaries, so people don't want to work there. That also a psychiatry, it's the same.
I'm going to pull one more question from the chat, and then I'm gonna wind us up a little bit. But and I had asked you this, and maybe you sort of covered it, but people are wondering about have there been any survivors of gender-based violence from October 7th who the rape crisis centers are treating yet, or were most of them either killed or taken hostage?
Okay, I will tell you the answer to this question. First of all, formally, no survivors called the hotline, but you have to understand. But I know because I'm in this community of sexual violence, so I know therapists, I know doctors, I know the community, like I'm some kind of focal point. I know by myself a few cases, maybe 10, 15, I don't know, of people that are, some survived and some saw what happened.
Mm-hmm.
These people all, right now, some of them went to therapy. Some of them, I know that they were injured. I don't know where they are today. They didn't want to speak about it. And as I learned also, in order to be able to speak about this horrific trauma, you have, first of all, to gain control of your life. We're in a war. There's a lot of people are evacuated. People from the party, many of them go to these places to be together, not to be alone. There's no gaining control of your life. It will take a long, long time till these people will come out. Some have therapists been before. They continue their therapy, yeah. Some found their new therapy, and others cannot deal with that. And it's not something. It's such a horrific trauma. It will take time. And I checked our statistics. In our statistics in the rape crisis centers, 50% of the people call only a year and after. And if the more severe the sexual abuse, it will take a longer time to call a rape crisis center. If it's some sexual harassment or something, it's more easier. And then they can call quicker. This is how it is. It's not something that it happens and you immediately fix it. It takes a long, long time, and we have to be patient.
Yeah, for sure. I just want to say, I know we discussed some really difficult subjects today and could be triggering for some people. And if that is the case, I hope you will seek the help that you need. Orit, you have just started the collective with us at Illuminate. I hope that you will find the collective to be a refuge for you and a source of strength as you go through this next year. I'm just going to leave us with one final question because it's what we all want to know is, How can we, the Jews in diaspora, support you and your colleagues at this time?
First of all, I want to say to all of you, thank you that you are now at noontime, instead of eating lunch, hearing about these things which are not easy. This is support, first of all. It's not something, it's support. And I'm also worried, I'm reading about this anti-Semitism. I'm worried about you. I have, people in New York, and I heard that the Jewish school, there's a police a car guarding the school, and I'm really worried, and I really hope that first of all, that you're okay. And I think it's a big question. First of all, us as Jews, and also for us as women, part of humankind. I think that we should talk. We like this kind of what you organize today is very important in your communities to talk about it, because the concealment of these atrocities is like some kind of a cut that you did not take care of, and it becomes more and more rotten. I think to see that, because this thing that happened is really something. Imagine, if you see these pictures, it's unbelievable that it happened in this century. How can people hate us Jews so much that they could do these things? And if they could do it to us in Israel, it could happen in other countries of the world. There are a lot of Muslims. They are powerful. And I think we cannot be quiet. I think we cannot be quiet in everything that we do that creates awareness. And also, I exactly understand. I do understand, but not understand all these UN women and all these women's organizations. But you have your communities. And it's very important to talk about it, because it happened, first of all, to women. Put the Jews aside. Happened to women. If it happened to us women, it can happen to every woman. And we cannot be quiet.
You're right. And I have chills from what you're saying. And I go back to what you said about a half an hour ago, that we're a resilient people. We always have been. And we will continue to be. So thank you so much, Orit, for sharing this with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, all of you, for your help and support and being here now.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Orit, for taking the time to be with us, to share your experience, your wisdom, your story with us, especially at this difficult time. And thank you, Rachel, for leading us through this conversation, as always. We know, like Orit said, this conversation is really just the beginning for us to understand what the needs are of women who are affected by this war, and those needs will change over time. And also, we hope just the beginning of this conversation for us to educate ourselves and figure out how we can support women on the ground and women leaders. We hope that you'll sign up for updates from the Association of Rape Crisis Centers so that you can continue to be informed of the incredible work that Orit and her team are doing in Israel. We hope that you'll join our next Crown Jewel conversation on December 13th at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time with Shahana McKinney-Balden, who is the founding executive director of EDOT Midwest Regional Jewish Diversity Collaborative. We offer these sessions at no cost to you, but if you do find value in what we're doing, we hope that you'll consider making 2 donations today. The first one to the Association of Rape Crisis Centers, and another to Illuminate. Thank you all for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next time. Enjoy the rest of your day.